Oh, thanks so much for that wonderful introduction. Matt, you're not so bad yourself. Hello, Skepticon 5. I'm happy to be here. This is my first Skepticon ever, and I wanted to do something a little bit special. Unfortunately, trying to do a close-up card trick in front of a huge group of people from a stage really just doesn't work out. And so what I've done instead is to actually record this and hope that you enjoy it. Today at Skepticon, I'm going to be talking about debates, but like many skeptics, I've had a keen interest in magic for my entire life. I'm also an ardent advocate of alliteration. I like to make use of the aces because it allows me to tell amusing stories about how assessing apologist arguments always aggravates and annoys. But, jokes aside, let's talk a little bit about debates. I've been doing more and more debates, and I've found a lot of similarities and some problems. And one of the things that I've attempted to do is to make a section of every debate be about directing questions back and forth between the parties. Otherwise, it ends up looking too much like a joint press conference. The traditional debate format is a back and forth over the course of several rounds, where each side has already pre-constructed the things that they're going to say without knowing what the other side is actually going to talk about. Yes, we know the subject of the debate, but apologists don't always stick to the subject of the debate. One common tactic is to make several arguments in rapid succession in the hopes that one of them gets through without a sufficient rebuttal. That's a problem. You can't have time to address everything that they're going to say. And so when I do my opening arguments, I attempt to make sure that instead of focusing on specific arguments against the existence of God, I instead focus on the substance behind the argument so that everybody understands the burden of proof. We need people to understand that. Apologists will also appeal to academic authorities and antiquated arguments. You can't address all of them most of the time. Something's going to get through. I try to make sure that when I'm in a debate, I focus on the fallacies and point out the limitations in the arguments that they're presenting. I want people to understand the value of critical thinking and the value of questioning all claims. In arguments about the existence of God, for example, the apologist will arrogantly assume that the anthropic principle demonstrates design. But they've got it exactly backward. They're leading the evidence where they want it to go. If you take a look at the anthropic principle, you'll find that it's backed by real data, real science, real evidence, but the apologists have somehow managed to get everything about it backwards. We weren't designed by a God. The universe wasn't designed to fit us. We evolved to fit the portion of the universe that we inhabit. We need people to recognize the value of following the evidence where it leads instead of leading the evidence where you'd like it to go. When all else fails in debates, apologists will just occasionally pull something right out of their ass. We need to make sure we speak to what we know and avoid focusing on irrelevancies. The final stage of most debates are closing arguments. And what apologists will attempt to do is point to all the things that you didn't address as if their unanswered assertions have accumulated into a winning hand. But the plural of anecdote is not data. And hopefully we've given people the tools they need to look behind the remaining arguments and see the truth. They're not backed by solid evidence. They're backed by fallacies and appeals to faith and special ways of knowing. They've attempted to smuggle their God into the conversation without relying on good evidence, and this is cheating. As we educate people in these debates, hopefully we're teaching them how to assess the arguments, because if they know where the burden of proof rests, and they question everything, and justify all claims with evidence, they'll tend to be right more often than not. Let's get started.